All right, Raider Nation, let's get into it, because there's a lot of chatter out there, and some of it is just plain wrong. I've been seeing headlines everywhere claiming that Ashton Gentry is going to be a bust for the Las Vegas Raiders, and honestly, I have to stop and say, that's nonsense. People are looking at a single game, one game, and already writing a player off as if his career is over before it even really begins. Sure, he scored a touchdown in his debut, but some people want to make it sound like that one moment tells the whole story. Let's break it down for anyone who actually watched the game and understands what football really looks like on the field. Gentry had 38 rushing yards officially, but here's the kicker. He actually gained 44 yards after contact. Think about that for a second. That means the moment defenders touched him, he still pushed forward and gained more ground than his official rushing stats show. How often do you see a running back achieve more after contact than their listed rushing total? It's rare, and it speaks volumes about his ability to fight through the line and make plays even when the blocking isn't perfect. So calling him a bust after one game in which the offensive line gave him barely any running room is just ridiculous. It shows the person writing that article didn't watch the game, didn't understand the context, and just wants to sound authoritative without putting in the work. Now, don't get me wrong, Gentry isn't flawless. His pass blocking could definitely improve. If you're going to draft a running back in the top 6 overall picks, you expect them to be a bell cow, someone who can handle both running and protecting the quarterback in all situations. And yes, when you watch the tape, there are moments where Gentry could have done a better job in pass protection. But here's the thing. He was playing in a wet, rainy environment, facing all-out blitzes, and taking on linebackers and defensive ends who were coming at him with everything they had. Those aren't ideal conditions for a rookie in his first game. And even with all that, his performance shows he has the tools to grow into a legitimate, dominant back for the Raiders. A 27.7 PFF grade doesn't tell the full story. Context matters. You have to consider the weather, the defensive schemes, and the fact that he was constantly fighting to create space where none existed. So while he isn't perfect, calling him a failure already is completely unfair. Then there's the narrative that the Raiders are the worst team in the AFC West. Honestly, that's another headline that doesn't hold up when you really look at the numbers and the talent on each roster. Rankings come out, people see the Raiders at the bottom, and they immediately assume the sky is falling. But let's get real here. Quarterback play is the ultimate equalizer in the NFL. And while other teams in the division may have flashes of talent, if your quarterback can't consistently perform at a high level, the rest of the pieces only go so far. Look at Denver. They might have an elite defense, but their quarterback situation is not competitive with Geno Smith, Justin Herbert, or Patrick Mahomes. So if you're ranking teams purely based on talent and ability to win games, the Broncos are the ones truly struggling at the most important position. The Raiders? They have potential. They have skill. And with Gentry in the backfield and Smith under center, there's a foundation to build on. The narrative that they're the worst team doesn't account for the full picture and ignores the progress that's being made on both sides of the ball. Now, moving over to the wide receiver situation, there's been a lot of speculation about Tyler Boyd being linked to the Raiders. Let me just put this out there. Yes, it's a name that gets mentioned a lot, but let's be realistic about what adding a veteran receiver would mean for this team. The Raiders were clearly interested in Amari Cooper before, and if they're considering another experienced wideout, it makes sense they'd look for someone who can contribute immediately. But here's the challenge. Do they need another slot receiver? With Jacoby Myers already on the roster, adding Boyd might not solve the areas that need the most improvement. What I would personally look for is a veteran who can stretch the field, someone who can work outside and inside, and still create mismatches for defenses. A guy like Robert Woods, currently on the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad, makes a lot more sense. He's getting reps, he's in shape, and he has coaching connections that align with the Raiders organization. He's reliable, durable, and could step in and contribute immediately without the questions surrounding fitness or readiness that sometimes come with free agents like Boyd or even Odell Beckham Jr. The Raiders don't need just a name. They need production and consistency. Adding Woods provides that, while Boyd is more of a gamble with less upside for immediate impact. Speaking of the receiving core, it's also worth noting that the Raiders are working smart behind the scenes. They've been bringing in players for workouts who aren't household names. Defensive backs like Isaiah Baldwin and Alex Johnson, and wide receiver Samori Aitor. These aren't the big splash names everyone wants to talk about, but this shows a methodical approach to building depth and finding hidden talent. The Raiders aren't just chasing headlines. They're trying to construct a team that has multiple layers and can sustain success over the long term. And honestly, that's what smart football looks like. You don't want to keep making the mistakes of the past, signing high-profile players who don't fit or aren't fully ready to contribute. You build your foundation, and then you layer talent on top of that. It's patience, strategy, and forward thinking. So, when you combine all of this, the talent in Gentry, the smart additions at wide receiver, the strategic approach to building depth, and the quarterback play, you start to see that the Raiders are far from the disaster that some critics are claiming. Yes, they're growing pains. Yes, Gentry needs to improve in some areas. Yes, there's still a lot of football left to play this season. But the narrative of doom and gloom ignores the reality. This team has pieces that can compete in the AFC West, and they have the potential to surprise a lot of people who are writing them off too early. The truth is, being a Raiders fan means believing in the process, trusting the players who are on the field, and recognizing talent even when it's raw. Ashton Gentry is not a bust. The Raiders are not the worst team in the division, and if management keeps making smart, calculated decisions, this roster has the ability to grow into something really special. And this is the point. You have to watch the games. You can't just rely on box scores or highlight clips. Football is about context, about seeing the trenches, about understanding that a running back who gains more yards after contact than total rushing yards is doing work that doesn't always show up in the stats. You can't call a player a bust after week 1, and you certainly can't say a team is the worst in their division based on rankings alone. You have to analyze, you have to watch, and you have to appreciate the nuances that make football the game it is. The Raiders are building something here, and it's going to take time, but the foundation is solid. Now, let's dive deeper into the wide receiver conversation, because this is where things get really interesting for the Raiders. Tyler Boyd keeps coming up as a potential target, and yes, I get it. He's a familiar name, a veteran who's played at a high level in the league. But here's the nuance that's often missed when people start throwing around his name. The Raiders need a player who can complement the roster, not just add another slot option. With Jacoby Myers already filling a slot role and the offense needing more versatility, Boyd may not be the best fit. He's experienced, no doubt, but when evaluating free agents, you can't just chase the name. You have to consider how a player's skills integrate with the existing roster, how they'll handle the system, and whether they can make an immediate impact. That's why, from a strategic standpoint, someone like Robert Woods becomes a far more intriguing option. Woods brings a combination of reliability, game experience, and positional flexibility that makes him valuable. He's been consistent over the last few seasons, playing 14 or more games each year, and that kind of durability is priceless in the NFL. You don't want to sign a free agent who might be a risk, a player who's been out of football for a stretch or whose conditioning is questionable. Woods is already on a practice squad, which means he's in football shape, he's getting reps, and he's ready to contribute. Add to that the coaching connections. The Raiders have a history with some of the Pittsburgh Steelers staff and with Pete Carroll, who recruited Woods to USC, and you see how the pieces line up. It's not just about talent on paper. It's about fit, preparation, and having a player who can step in without disrupting the rhythm of the offense. Of course, some people will point to names like Odell Beckham Jr. And yes, he has star power, but there's a real question mark around health and consistency. OBJ hasn't been the same player in recent years, and with the Raiders' priorities right now, taking a gamble on a player whose best years may be behind him isn't the move. What you want is a veteran presence who can stretch the field, make plays in the red zone, and offer stability alongside Geno Smith and the younger receivers. That's the way to balance youth, experience, and production. Speaking of youth, it's worth highlighting how the Raiders have approached the offseason. They've been methodical in their workouts and tryouts, bringing in players who aren't necessarily headline grabbers, but who have potential and can fit into the team's long-term vision. Defensive backs like Isaiah Baldwin and Alex Johnson, along with wide receiver Samori Aitor, aren't household names, but they represent depth and versatility. These aren't splash moves. These are calculated decisions aimed at building a sustainable roster. The Raiders learned from past mistakes, signing high-profile players who don't fit the system. And now the strategy is all about smart acquisitions. This is how you avoid another Amari Cooper situation where expectations were high but the fit wasn't ideal. Back to the wide receiver discussion. If the Raiders do decide to target a veteran, they're likely looking for someone who can contribute immediately, someone who has been in game shape, and someone who can provide both leadership and production. Robert Woods checks all those boxes. He's durable, reliable, and versatile. He can line up outside, work the slot if needed, and complement the existing core without creating redundancy. It's about filling gaps, not chasing notoriety. The Raiders aren't in a position to gamble. They need calculated moves that strengthen the roster and create sustainable depth. And let's not forget the bigger picture here. The AFC West is incredibly competitive. Kansas City, Denver, and Los Angeles all have strong units. And the Raiders need to ensure they are building a team that can compete across all three phases of the game. You can't just rely on flashy plays or highlight reel touchdowns. Football is a game of preparation, execution, and adaptability. The offense needs weapons, yes, but those weapons have to be compatible with the system, the quarterback, and the style of play the coaching staff is implementing. That's why a player like Woods or someone similar makes more sense than chasing a big name just for the headlines. The reality is the Raiders have pieces in place. Ashton Gentry is showing that he can handle contact, fight for extra yards, and has the potential to grow into a true bell cow back. Geno Smith is proving capable under center, making adjustments, and leading this team with a level of poise that gives fans confidence. The wide receiver situation is the next puzzle, and it's being approached with strategy, not desperation. The goal isn't just to sign someone. The goal is to sign the right someone who fits the system, adds depth, and helps the team compete in a division where every game is a battle. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL world is buzzing with speculation after what insiders are calling a blockbuster signing that could reshape the balance of power in the AFC West. Rumors are swirling that defensive juggernaut Aaron Donald has officially joined the Las Vegas Raiders. And if the whispers are true, the silver and black are about to become a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. Sources close to the team hint that Donald, known for his relentless pass rush and uncanny ability to collapse pockets, is already promising a very specific kind of havoc. A full-scale hunt on every QB in the division. Donald, a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, has built a reputation for single-handedly turning games in his team's favor. The notion of him patrolling the trenches at Allegiant Stadium has caused rival coaches in the West to reportedly spend sleepless nights considering how to protect their signal callers. He said he's coming to hunt the QBs of the AFC West, one source claimed, echoing the fiery confidence that has always accompanied Donald's every move. The statement alone has sparked a flurry of social media chatter, with fans speculating whether the Raiders' defensive front could become historically unstoppable. While the Raiders have made bold moves before, adding a player of Donald's caliber could signify a serious shift in identity. Analysts are already debating how his presence might alter Las Vegas defensive schemes. Will the Raiders lean into a more aggressive, blitz-heavy approach? Or will Donald's disruptive abilities simply amplify the effectiveness of the existing unit? The speculation is endless, and the intrigue only grows as training camp approaches. For now, the official channels remain tight-lipped, only fueling the fire. But the mere possibility of Aaron Donald wreaking havoc on Derek Carr, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and other division rivals is enough to send shockwaves across the league. One thing is certain. If even a fraction of these rumors hold true, the Raiders' defensive line just became the most feared in the AFC West. And for fans and rivals alike, the countdown to the first showdown has never felt more electric. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.